and welcome to tomorrow's Talk Today. I'm your host, Jessica Boggs, here today with Dalton, Jordan, and Audrey. Today we are discussing marijuana and the recent legalization of it. Marijuana use in Virginia up until a few months ago was an illegal substance. Although it is decriminalized, cannabis is still not able to be sold in stores across Virginia. But to many people, there are still many things that need to be talked about when it comes to marijuana. People caught with it before decriminalization still reside in prison, with many of those being a majority of people of color being incarcerated. Others argue legal age of marijuana, once it is able to be sold in stores in Virginia. Finally, many cite the many health benefits of marijuana consumption, stating that the stigma around cannabis as a drug is a crime itself. Our guests today have researched these topics and are prepared to talk about them. Here's a short clip about these benefits.
Those on the pro side believe that marijuana legalization would boost the economy. They say that the entire industry in the U.S. could exceed $24 billion in revenue by 2025. It would generate economic activity for industries such as tourism, banking, food, real estate, construction, and transportation. They point to the legal marijuana industry that has already generated $7.2 billion in economic activity in 2016 and has added millions of dollars in federal taxes. Those, on the contrary, believe that legalized marijuana creates heavy costs for society and taxpayers that far outweighs its tax revenues. Costs such as emergency room visits, medical care for the uninsured, DUI accidents, crime, and the impact of secondhand smoke. They point to the annual $417 billion alcohol and tobacco cost society today.
Who knew about that? Marijuana sure helps a lot of people. Now, Dalton, how about you explain some of the other things that you found out about marijuana?
Yeah, and speaking about the benefits, some of the health benefits, I think one of the best things to talk about is the mental health benefits on how people can, or how people have in the past treated, anxiety and even something as drastic as seizures, any sort of drastic illnesses. I've heard of stories where people are treating it with either cannabis or, in some sort of way. So that's always something to think about. Obviously, the context really helps and it's situational, but that's definitely something to think about when you're talking about the health benefits.
Now, Jordan, what do you think?
I think that it could be an exit drug or a gateway drug. It depends on the person. If it's a gateway, it can influence people to try a harder drug, which isn't necessarily true. It all depends on the person. But it can also be an exit drug. Like marijuana helps people who have addictive issues, like they're addicted to heroin or alcoholism or anything like that, and it can break those tendencies. I'm not sure how, but I know that it can.
And Audrey, what do you think?
In my research, I've found that there have been links to heavy pot smoking and people having bipolar disorder, as well as being more prone to suicidal thoughts. But what makes this conversation so complicated, coming from the mental health aspect, like Dalton was talking about, is that it's so difficult to establish cause, because are people that smoke marijuana more likely to develop mental health issues down the road, or are people with mental health issues more likely to smoke marijuana? So it's, the conversation is difficult, but it needs to be had,
Right. So what do you guys think about this? Do you think that marijuana should be treated the same way that alcohol and cigarettes are treated? Jordan, what do you think?
I think yes, because alcohol is more toxic than nicotine, and because marijuana is of a more chemical compound, I feel like it should be in the same category as alcohol.
And Dalton?
Yeah, I think one of the best things to bring up with this is I definitely think that it should be treated the same way, but I've seen videos where people talk about how the brain isn't fully developed, especially with males, until our mid-20s or something like that. So I definitely think that at the bare minimum, it should be treated like alcohol and cigarettes at the age of 21, so that people can sort of be more educated and just smarter about the whole situation if they do decide to partake in something like that. It's an interesting situation, but I think at the bare minimum, if we're going to do something like this, then 21 should be the minimum age.
And Audrey, what do you think?
Going back to the question, I mean, I don't think that it should be treated the same as alcohol and cigarettes. I think that, you know, alcohol and cigarettes definitely cause much more harm to a lot of people than marijuana ever has. I mean, I know that, you know, there are no, you know, grounded studies that show that smoking marijuana causes cancer or heart disease, whereas, you know, we know cigarettes causes lung cancer and rapid rates, and alcohol, you know, is detrimental. So I don't think that marijuana should be held to the same standards as alcohol and cigarettes, personally.
Now, to make a long topic kind of short, do you think that now is a good time for marijuana to start becoming legalized in all these places in America?
I think yes, because it's about that time. It's 2021, and we have so many medical advances that, honestly, marijuana could help at least half those. And I think it's time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's inevitable. Like, so many other states are doing it, and I mean, like Jordan said, it's really simple, but it's 2021. Like, we're only going to like keep making the steps to actually make this happen. And on the topic of the age, just to throw it in there really quick, you know, we've all seen videos recently where, again, it's really situational and depends on the person, but people at the age of 18 could possibly, you know, get some sort of medical card and get approved to actually like use it for medical reasons. So sure, you know, in certain situations it definitely helps if you factor in lower younger ages, but I think for more recreational use it should definitely be 21. But yeah, we're gonna only get more progressive about this kind of thing, so it's got to happen, honestly.
Okay. Now, thank you all. You guys bring up some very good points about positive cannabis use. Up next, marijuana and the legal age of consumption. We'll be right back after this short break.
WMLU 91.3 FM, the music of Longwood University and Farmville, Virginia. Rebound to Phillips. Great, strong rebound by Cody Phillips. And Jordan Shinfrom with the mid-range jumper goes down off the backboard.
So the sports committee within WMLU is an award-winning committee in itself, and it's an opportunity for people to be able to call Division I athletic events. Basketball, we've done soccer, we've done softball for the first time last year. This year we're doing tennis for the first time, which I'm excited about, as well as baseball in the mix as well. So it's an opportunity for people to get on-air experience, learn who they are as a play-by-play, on-air talent. There's a lot of different things that kind of come with that.
All right, so with WMLU Sports, there's always 3 people working a game. So usually there'll either be 2 people calling the game, color and play-by-play, and then there'll be 1 person in the studio working the soundboard right here. The soundboard is to make sure that the guys or girls at that game are sounding good. They can hear them over the air or the web stream. If there's any problems, the person in the studio is able to adapt and adjust and make sure that everything here is working well.
I'm a proud Longwood graduate, class of 2011, and there is no way I would be here if it weren't for my time behind the mic at WMLU, the music of Longwood University and the award-winning home of your Longwood Lancers.
So this is an opportunity to grow, learn, figure out what works best for you, what skills you have, what makes you a good on-air talent, good play-by-play person. But it's also, of course, an opportunity to just meet new people with similar interests. Inherently, if you're joining the sports committee, you probably like sports, and then everybody else in the room does too. So it's an opportunity to grow, make new friends, and have that commonality between other individuals.
11:44 left in the second half, which brings us to our under 12-minute media timeout. So we'll come back with Harper Baker at the Charity Stripe here on WMLU.
Welcome back. Now let's jump right into it. Cigarettes have a minimum legal age of 21 now, as of just last year. Alcohol, of course, too, has the same minimum limit. So, should marijuana be held to the same standard despite the benefits we just talked about? Let us turn our attention towards the following video for more information.
Starters, an individual must be at least 21 years old to consume marijuana recreationally. The same limit is lowered to 18 years for a medical cannabis patient possessing a valid medical marijuana recommendation. That's right. You don't have to wait 3 years to embark on a medical marijuana treatment plan. No, consumption of cannabis by anyone younger than 18 without a medical card can cause serious legal repercussions. Penalties for cannabis possession by minors. Possession of cannabis by anyone younger than 18 years old can result in a fine of up to $250 the first time and up to $500 after that. They may also be committed to a detention center for no more than 10 days.
So Audrey, you've been researching the legal age of marijuana use. What do you have to say on it?
Well, I know Jordan and Dalton both said, they stand by 21, but I mean, I stand by 18. Like I mentioned before, cigarettes and alcohol, I don't believe should be held to the same standard as marijuana, as they're far more dangerous and detrimental. I mean, I've found studies that show that even, consuming fast food is more dangerous than marijuana has been. So yeah, and I think that a lot of people fear that by legalizing marijuana to the age of 18, there's going to be this whole new wave of drug addicts coming in and, causing havoc. But I actually, I disagree with that. I think that what we're going to see by legalizing it to 18 is, people using marijuana much more responsibly and actually in moderation, because what it's going to do is it's going to destigmatize marijuana, and people are going to feel, more prone to use it safely rather than, recklessly like they are now.
Now, Jordan, what do you think about this?
Okay, I have a couple points. There's the standpoint of using it recreationally and medically, and then the actual point. Recreationally, I believe that it should be 21 years of age, because if you break it down, marijuana is a chemical compound. Like, it's tetrahydrocannabinol, and like it or not, it's still a chemical. It's not supposed to be in our body, and if it's going to have that psychoactive effect on our brains, it should at least be more grown, I believe. If we look at it at a medical standpoint, I think it should at least be 18, so that way anyone who actually needs medical marijuana can afford it if they have like a weed card. And then actually, I believe that in a perfect world, if we could, the legal age should be about 24, 25, because that's when our brain stops developing and becomes what it actually is.
No, Dalton, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the best points right there was just at the end when he was talking about our developing brains, and we mentioned it briefly earlier about how it's not really completely fully developed until 24, 25. So it's just a matter of really breaking down the technical aspect of it, and really, I mean, I think it seems kind of straightforward to me with the age, but I know that there's so many different angles that you can attack it from. So I think that it definitely should still be held to that same standard of 21. And like Jordan said, in a perfect world, it really would be 24, 25. So yeah, it's just a matter of really breaking that down.
So very quickly, can you guys explain to me, why do you think we're just now starting to legalize marijuana? Do you want to start, Audrey?
It has been, like I mentioned, really stigmatized in the past. I think, with social media and just how easy we are able to learn things about, things that have been stigmatized, people are starting to wake up and realize, okay, this isn't as bad as it's been made out to be, using stereotypes and things like that.
Dalton?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the points that I was going to bring up. It's just the fact that it's been stigmatized for so long. People have grown opinions about it over the years. It's not necessarily something that you can be open about and sort of talk about freely up until really now, as far as now that we're talking about legalizing it, So yeah, it's really just about the stigma.
Thank you for coming. Up next, after the break, incarceration despite decriminalization. We'll be right back.
The Communication Studies Department has always prided itself on having our students do original research. And in the fall of 2018, when I was teaching that class, I wanted to look for a way to have our students present that research in a different manner. And I did a little research, and I could not find anyone else who had live streamed original undergraduate research. So I kind of came up with the idea to have the students present it, and Dr. Paul was very agreeable here. And so rather than doing a traditional poster session or something like that, we came up with the idea to have our students present their research in front of the camera. And the cool thing about that is the distribution is much wider than it would be typically. Parents, alumni, friends of the department all got to watch that research, and the students also had something that was more lasting that they could look at later in life than a traditional poster format.
So one of the ultimate aims of doing research is that you get to share it with somebody, and that it's just not for yourselves or just to have some sort of document. It's to be able to disseminate that research, whether you have significant findings or not. And so being able to have an audience for your research project is paramount. And having an opportunity to live stream it gives students an awesome opportunity to be able to share it with a large audience.
So being in the studio, there's just nothing like that. This is the whole overall experience. You got the cameras, the lights, everything in front of you, being on the stage, and all the information's there, and you have one take to get that information out as efficiently as you can, compared to having a poster session where people come and go as they please, and you're just set at one spot for X amount of time. So being in the studio, it's just a great experience, nothing like it.
Welcome back, everyone. We have talked a lot about marijuana, and we're now on the final topic for today. All across America, people are sitting in prison over minor drug charges related to marijuana, specifically a disproportionate amount of people of color. Here we have a clip on the issue.
Black Americans are 3.6 times more likely to be arrested for selling drugs and 2.5 times more likely to be arrested for possessing them. So that's really fascinating information. They continue to say that whites were about 45% more likely than blacks to sell drugs in 1980, and that's according to an analysis of the National Longitudinal Study of Youth by economist Robert Fairlie, and analysis of data from 2012's National Survey on Drug Use and Health shows that 6.6% of white adolescents and young adults aged 12 to 25 sold drugs, compared to just 5.5% of blacks, and that's a 32% difference.
A lot to take in, but important information to talk about. Jordan, you've been researching this, so what do you know about this topic?
Yeah, all right, so marijuana used to be sold as hemp overseas to all the English, I believe, and later along the timeline, around the 1920s, it was declared in the U.S. that, like, hey, the term marijuana is illegal. Like, there's nothing about it that should be had on Americans, and that was held until about 1940, when it was discovered that, hey, maybe marijuana isn't that bad. However, it was still illegal. And then fast forward again towards the Ronald Reagan presidency and the war on drugs. It was quoted that Ronald Reagan's party even had a stigmatized bias towards people of color and minorities, saying that we'll keep the marijuana with the hippies and heroin and cocaine with the blacks, so that we can properly prosecute them. And even after his presidency, it's still happening. Like, it's still an ongoing trend, and it's really sad to see.
Now, Dalton, we'll pass it over to you. What do you think about this?
I think it's an interesting topic, because if we do, I mean, once we do get to the point, it's not really an if situation, but when we do get to the situation where we're legalizing it, what happens to all these people that are in prison for really minor offenses by just like possessing marijuana and stuff like that? I've seen cases where, you know, people have had it mailed to them and they've been in jail for an extended amount of time. I think it was a little overboard for certain cases like that, but that's a big question. Like, what do you do with all the people in prison? So it's really going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
And Audrey?
Well, Jordan brought up a great point about the racial bias that people of color experience. Like in the clip mentioned and from normal.org, black people are arrested for violating marijuana possession laws 4 times the rate of white people, yet both races consume marijuana roughly at the same rate. So a lot of, racial issues do come into play when people are being arrested for marijuana charges. And you know, it is a good thing that we're sitting here having this conversation. You know, we're really bringing it to light because this is a serious problem, and because many people are ripped from their families and put into prison for extended amount of time for just for marijuana. And how we've talked about here that marijuana, you know, it isn't even that detrimental. So it's just a massive problem, but at least we're talking about it.
Now, what do you guys think about the history of marijuana in Virginia? We know that it dated back to the 1600s. Does anyone have anything to say about that?
I do.
Jordan?
I'm proud of our evolution. Like we just recently had a law in motion, and it passed 2 chambers meetings, and hopefully, if everything stays on track, it's going to be in session by 2024, making all marijuana legal. I don't know to what extent, but hey, that's progress.
All right. I'd like to thank you all for joining me. This has been quite the discussion, but that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for watching tomorrow's Talk Today. I'm your host, Jessica Boggs, and I'll see you next time.